going shopping. And again, that is considering the carbon dioxide emitted into the atmosphere as a direct result of that action or of that event. So if you follow this link, there is a really useful survey or questionnaire where you can answer a few questions about your lifestyle, and what it will do is it will basically tell you your carbon footprint, and it will also break it down into these categories. So how much of your carbon footprint is because of the food you eat, how much is because of the travel you undertake, how much is about just your general living standards and your home, and how much of it is, you know, sort of miscellaneous other things that contribute to your carbon footprint. So I'm going to complete it from my perspective. So yeah, meat in, not in, I'm going to say every meal. I'm assuming they're talking about dinners. Obviously, I don't have meat for breakfast. In a week, how much do you spend on food from takeaways? Well, no more than a tenner. Of the food you buy, how much is thrown away? Well, some of it definitely is, so 0 to 10%. How often do you buy locally produced food? Again, I would say I don't really worry about it, I'll be completely honest. I mean, I'm well aware that when you buy, you know, strawberries, for example, sometimes they say made in, grown in Britain, sometimes they say grown in Spain. I'm not particularly fussy. What kind of vehicle do you travel in, most as a driver or passenger? Definitely car. What's best described? It is a small petrol car. How many hours a week do you spend in your car? Under 2 hours, I only live 5 minutes away. I don't travel by train. Obviously, this is going to be different for all of you. I don't travel by bus either. I don't fly anywhere, so that's an easy one. I don't offset my flights because I don't have any. Semi-detached house, 3 bedrooms, 2 adults living there. We have gas central heating. I don't actually know. I don't think it is. I'm going to say I don't know though. I don't know if it's renewable energy. Do you turn off your lights and appliances? No, not really. I leave things on standby. 18 to 21 seems a reasonable temperature. I have energy saving bulbs, I have loft insulation, I have cavity insulation, I have a condensing boiler, I have double glazing. I don't have low flow fittings, I don't have solar panels, I don't have a solar water heater. Things I've bought, bought a new phone recently. How much would I spend on clothes and footwear? Well, not much, but yeah, it must be between £1 and £50. I don't have a pet. How much do I spend on grooming products? No more than a tenner. Probably £30 to £60 on TV and phone contracts. And I recycle food. We have a compost bin. I recycle paper, tin cans, plastic, glass. I recycle all of that. And skip. So once you've been through that, you should be able to get a breakdown of first your total carbon footprint, and also a breakdown of what percentage is, you know, food, travel, home, and other stuff. So my carbon footprint is 9.2 tons. Okay, and it says here that I'm 87% of my target impact on the world. Okay, so it's quite high. We get a comparison, so the UK average. So my carbon footprint is lower than the UK average, but it is higher than the world average. If you click on view results, you get a breakdown of what percentage. So food was 27%, travel was only 5%, home was 41%, and other stuff was also 27%. So if you click on each one of them, you can get a breakdown of tips of how you can reduce the level of your carbon footprint. So for food, okay, so for food you can eat seasonal foods. Okay, the carbon footprint is much lower if you are eating food that is being naturally grown at that time of year anyway. Eat less meat and dairy. Okay, cattle farming has quite a large carbon footprint, lots and lots of methane produced in cattle farming. And variety. So those are the 3 tips for food. For travel, well, cycling, that seems pretty obvious, or walking rather than driving. But if you must drive or must, travel long distances, use public transport. Or it says drive smarter. I'm going to say improve fuel efficiency. So the idea that, removing excess weight from the car, so not driving around with something heavy in the boot because that's going to decrease your mileage. Having the right air pressure in your tires. Again, if your tires are flat, it's going to require more petrol to make journeys. And also by slowing your overall speeds. So not driving around slowly, but instead of going 70, going 60, things like that. Massively improve your fuel economy. Things we can do at home to improve our carbon footprint. Switching energy providers, definitely. Lots of energy providers now are offering eco tariffs or tariffs that use only renewables. So I'm going to say renewable energy tariffs. So this doesn't mean you have to get solar panels on your roof. We're just talking about normal electricity that is being provided to your home, but that electricity is generated by the provider via renewable means. Okay. And then finally, for the additional sort of stuff section, what can we do to reduce our carbon footprint just in general? Okay. So we can basically, I'm going to put consumerism. Okay. Buying things less often. And yeah, buy secondhand. But I'm just actually going to say reuse. Reusing things is incredibly powerful in terms of reducing your carbon footprint, as opposed to recycling, which is good, but reusing is always the best option. There are a number of reasons why it's difficult globally to reduce our carbon footprint and to reduce our greenhouse gas emissions, and a number of them have been outlined here. So scientific disagreements over the causes and consequences of climate change, the lack of public information and education, changes in our lifestyle, economic considerations, rises in global populations, and international cooperation. So We'll start with scientific disagreement over causes and consequences of global climate change. Right, there isn't a consensus. Okay, so due to complex system and multiple variables, there is no consensus. Okay, which means that not every scientist agrees. There is an overwhelming majority of scientists who endorse the greenhouse greenhouse effect as being the primary cause of climate change. And even the scientists that are saying that it could be other things, such as solar flares or volcanic activity, or just natural warming of the earth as part of a cycle, of all those things, the only thing we can actually influence is our greenhouse gas emissions. So even if it isn't the most important driving force of climate change, it's certainly the only one that we can do anything about, and therefore is the only course of action we can possibly take. So due to a complex system and multiple variables, there is no consensus. However, the majority of scientists believe greenhouse gas emissions or greenhouse gases are causing climate change. And because there is no consensus, because not every scientist agrees wholeheartedly, it does give rise to what we call sort of climate change deniers, and certainly very, very high profile climate change deniers, such as Donald Trump. And whether you like him or not, whether you agree with him or not, he is a very, very powerful, very, very influential person, and he has repeatedly publicized that he doesn't believe in man-made climate change. And, people like that are emboldened by the fact that there is no clear consensus over the causes of climate change. So lack of public information and education. Again, it's very, very complex. And the problem is when you're trying to get a public information, public education out there, is you want to keep it as simple as possible, but the reality is it isn't simple, and it's very difficult to give a simplified version of a very, very complex system. So it is difficult to convey effectively in a simplistic form. Okay, but there is a lot of effort going into including climate science in education and the impacts of climate science. So lifestyle changes. I mean, even in my lifetime, the number of computers you'd have in a home has increased. The number of mobile phones and mobile devices that people own has increased. The number of cars that people own has increased. Okay, our lifestyle changes have driven us to consume much, much more. So changes in lifestyles mean greater consumerism. For example, number of electronic devices owned. Okay, so personally, when I was your age, I had a mobile phone, and that would have been all I had. We had a family computer, we had a family TV in the living room. I look now, I own my own laptop, I have a tablet, I have a mobile, I have a TV, in my bedroom, I have a TV. in the living room. My son has a TV in his room. You know, my wife has a tablet. My wife has a mobile phone. Just lifestyles, people's lifestyles have changed, and now we have many more devices and many more sort of items that we just wouldn't have had previously. And again, that is going to drive up our carbon footprint. Economic considerations. Okay, so first of all, sort of fossil fuels are an extremely lucrative and profitable business. We're talking billions and billions and billions of pounds are made every year on the extraction and the selling and the byproducts of fossil fuels. As a result, huge amounts of CO2 emissions into the atmosphere, but it does drive the economy. If we were to just suddenly stop using crude oil, there would be a massive economic cost to that. On the other side of that, you could look at renewables. Well, renewable energy tends to be more expensive because, as with everything, it's about scale. When solar energy becomes the mainstream source of energy, then the price of the solar panels will come down. But at the moment, because it is in the minority, it's still quite expensive. So renewables are currently, and I'm going to stress currently because the price will come down, you know, as with everything, the renewables are currently quite expensive. Right, population rises. So global population is rising. And it is rising exponentially. So, you know, more people needs greater energy demands, more fossil fuels are needed, more electricity is needed, and again, greater greenhouse gas emissions. So the energy demand is therefore rising exponentially. Okay, incomplete international cooperation. Cooperation is required. This is really important because of what we said is that the fossil fuels are very, very lucrative, very, very profitable, very, very important to the economy. If we are going to switch from fossil fuels to renewables, that's going to come at an economic cost for any country that undertakes that change. And if everybody commits to that, then the economic cost will be shared. Whereas if you don't have international cooperation and you have one country that stubbornly refuses, and they actually perhaps take advantage of the fact that all the countries around it have stopped using fossil fuels, and now suddenly they're the only supplier of fossil fuels, well, they're going to have a massive economic advantage, and that would cause the other countries to be less inclined to make that change. The only way we are going to move from our dependence on fossil fuels to being more reliant on renewable energy is if globally there is international cooperation. So cooperation is required to enact long-term change.